Okay, so Chanticleer is able to outfox the fox and escape and fly to higher ground. So, again, essentially, he's kind of back on top of things, right? He's untouchable. His fortune has changed. And we get essentially three morals from this story. And for Chanticleer, the moral is for he who willingly shuts his eyes when he should see, may God let him never thrive. So essentially, he's saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Woe to him who turns a blind eye when he's been given this kind of ability to see clearly. Um, then the fox says, well, no, that's not it. It's God give him bad fortune, who is so indiscreet as to prattle when he should hold his peace. So essentially, don't talk too much or God will get you. Keep your mouth shut. Because if he had kept his mouth shut, if he had not boasted, he would still have Chanticleer. He would have his tasty dinner. He has now suffered bad fortune because he would not hold his peace. And it's essentially, I want you guys to think back to this kind of thing that the fox says, uh, not as in the song what the fox says, but this idea of don't talk too much, don't be so indiscreet as to prattle. It kind of goes back to the words of the wanderer, don't be hasty of speech. And that we've come a full circle here because this is kind of the wisdom that we get in these two poems, but not these two poems, but this tale or these two morals. And the nun's priest says no, that such a thing is to be negligent and heedless and trust flattery. So he's basically saying don't trust flatterers. Don't be so naive. And really, I think that the beauty of this story is that it could be one of these three. It could be all of these three. It could be none of these three. So I kind of want to unpack this a little bit more and look at this kind of invitation or this narrative distance that the nun's priest ends with in his final words. He says, but you who maintain this tale to be foolishness, about nothing but a fox and a cock and a hen, take the moral, good sirs. For St. Paul says that all that is written for our learning and truth. Take the fruit and leave the chaff. And now may the good God, if his will be so, and says my Lord, make us all good Christians and bring us heavenly bliss. Amen. So essentially, what he's saying is okay, if you think that this story is just a foolish tale about a rooster and a hen, well, okay, fair enough. But he does invite us to engage in an interpretation of this story. He says that we are meant to find the fruit. Find the fruit amongst the chaff, or find the fruit amongst the useless. So it's really, is this interpretation? I mean, what is the interpretation? And I think that that's the beauty of the eye of the reader. Is it biblical? Is it practical? Are we meant to take this as a kind of an illustration of biblical truth to bring us closer to God? As because most of the time these priests would tell these non-biblical stories as a way to illustrate these biblical truths. Or is it more practical? Is it meant to apply to our everyday life? So essentially, the moral of this story, the interpretation of this story, is much like the interpretation of the dream itself. Is it practical, a la Pertolote, or is it divine, a la Chanticleer? So I think that I'm interested to see, this is one of the topics for your discussion board this week, but I want to take just one more second to comment on the kind of satire and the kind of brilliance that is Chaucer's Nun's Priest Tale. And it's a very simple tale on the surface. It's a story about a rooster who is convinced that his dream means nothing by his wife, and he is ultimately kind of doomed because of this interaction with a fox. But it's also paradoxically complex in that it provides both a kind of Christian commentary about the dangers of pride and naivety. It is a social commentary when he kind of looks at the common views of women and their ability to lead men astray. And I want to take one more look back to his view on women, and this being kind of a commentary on the prioress and how she should live a moderate life. I want to talk really quickly as I was going back through and listening and thinking about things, this idea of the widow, and if the widow is meant to kind of model to the prioress the value of the simple life of lack of excess in kind of social and spiritual matters, it's also kind of a comment to the wife of Bath, who is herself a widow, who has been excessive in her marriages, excessive in her amount of husbands, excessive in her sexuality, and how, being married once in the mindset of the medieval time period would have been enough. And after her husband dies, and the wife of Bath has had four dead husbands, excuse me, and she's married to number 5. The idea would be to not remarry and live as a widow. So again, kind of having this widow is kind of a social commentary, not only to the prioress, but to also the wife of Bath. In between that social commentary and going back on this idea of the ability of women to lead men astray, while Pertolote doesn't lead Chanticleer to sin, she does flatter him into false security after his dream. And it's also a kind of social commentary and somewhat of a political commentary on the misfortunes or moral statue of other pilgrims, in particular the monk and the prioress, because the monk, as I said, is not a model of virtue, and it is a warning against elevated pompous preaching. It's also a warning to, or a commentary on the prioress, which we talked about, and again, a warning to, or a commentary on the life of the wife of Bath. But this is also a political commentary, according to some scholars, that this is a kind of objection to Richard I and his many unsuccessful attempts at gaining control of the Holy Land during the Third Crusade. And essentially, this kind of Richard I, still today, the Lionheart, was admired for his chivalry, admired for his heroism, admired for his religious zeal and his quest to regain the Holy Land. But for Chaucer, it wasn't so much a religious war as it was a bloodthirsty kind of quest. And really, by akinning Chanticleer's demise, or almost demise or his fall from grace to the death of Richard the First is kind of that parallel to his policies and his military escapades, and by kind of objecting to this um, it's kind of I mean, it's kind of dangerous to criticize the king. This criticism of the king is and his rule is also thereby a criticism of the values that he holds dear, those codes of chivalry, and those who embody them and those who fight. So essentially, we have in this one tale a commentary on all social avenues, on all social aspects, and really gives us an insight into Chaucer's world and the world of the 14th century. So I'm interested to see what you guys think of the Nun's Priest, the Nun's Priest tale, and what is the fruit and what is the chaff? What are we supposed to make of this tale? I think it's a fun one. I hope you guys did too, and I'm interested to see what you guys think. So I will see you guys in the discussion boards. Please feel free to ask me any questions that you may have about the tale, and I'll be seeing you guys in the very near future.